Hey everybody, BTO Pro here, and I just wanted to show off really. Building a microservice, and I've been hinting that we're not doing this to make PDFs. So here is something we're building currently. So imagine this is user-generated content, because it is. And so this is a really big online course. It's completely OER, or just open material to the public. It's got cool little call outs like this in it. It's got videos. Some come from YouTube, some come from elsewhere. There's little interactive exercises. There's images, all kind of stuff, right? Imagine it's a really well-produced online course, because it is. So this is called Chem 110. Now, I've got other content, other sites here as well. And so something that I'm working on is this. So this is a web component called Lesson Overview, and it is the controller for something called Lesson Highlight. So what you're seeing here is a lesson highlight. Each individual lesson highlight is more or less a design asset. All right, so it can accept an icon. All right, I could change this to say HAX: HAX 2022, and we get the 2022 edition of the logo. We could say this is blue, right? It modifies certain aspects of it. You can see the slotted content. So, right, this can be whatever we want. And it's got some minor design aesthetic to basically just keep it there. Now, Lesson Overview is effectively just loading the entire thing on element visibility. So imagine, scroll down the page, ton of content, loads in place dynamically. So this one is a little different than the second one here. So we can see we have a input field that just is pointing at one of these sites. Now I'm going to load my site first to show what happens. So I'm going to paste that in there, and I'm going to load stats. Let me make sure I have that up. And so we can see under the second one, there's a whole bunch of things here that are not visualized. So it does say HAX 2022, but let's move this over. I don't know why my webcam keeps showing up. And then we'll do load stats. And you can see all of these different things suddenly show up and go loading and updating data. And then when they're done, they reset themselves appropriately. So this analyzed my site, hit every page in it, pulled it back as HTML, walked through it using the web components aspect of being highly semantic and how we're letting people drop web components in the page, and analyzed the material to find there are 2 images in my course. There are 14 pages of material that have 2 images in it, right? So just a different way of presenting that detail. And there's approximately 14 minutes of reading using 225 words as an estimate. Now, mine is not a full-blown online course. This is basically just a little play space to describe what you're going to do in the course. Let's pick another online course. So we're going to hit, in this case, Geodesign 511. These stats are going to go and update because we've changed what it's pointing to. And if we look at the backend code getting hit here, right, we're hitting this thing at its endpoint called course stats. Oh, nice. And that actually generated some different errors I need to account for, which I can see in my little vercel console here. I'm trying to account for like MP4s. I don't want to have to load in all the MP4s to analyze and figure out how long they are, but I can do that with YouTube and Vimeo links. So I'll step through the code over here of what's going on. 31 images were found, 5 videos. It doesn't know how to identify video length. It's an important glitch for me to fix. And we can see there are 2 data tables in the material as well that it found, and 106 pages in that course. Now let's hit the biggie, which is Chem 110. And I'm going to let that run over there. We're going to step through what is going to happen here. So what we can see is this is the endpoint that gets hit. This is out in vercel. And the key thing is we're just doing some data validation and then hitting this course stats from outline. And so course stats from outline comes from right here. So let's let that go. This is going to take a while. All right. Course stats from outline is going to figure out where our site lives. It's going to fetch that site. So at that address /site.json is this schema we made. So first it's going to pull that in. It's going to figure out all the pages. Then it's going to order all of the pages in that schema so they're in the correct hierarchical order. You can see it just came back. And then it's going to turn that site into a single HTML blob. Then we are going to walk through that HTML blob like so, using the lovely node-html-parser function parse. So all I have to do is pass in valid HTML to parse, and then in Node.js, I can do pretty common query selector operations like I would expect on the front end. Saved a ton of time. So as here we can see, we have words. Well, if I want to figure out how many words are in this HTML document, aka the entire course, I just grab the inner text, trim off the white space, split based on a space character, and then give me the length. Now I have the number of words. Take the number of words divided by 225, which is the average pace as far as number of words per minute that an adult can read. Again, it's just an approximation. And we've got read time. Now, how many pages were there? Well, we just see how long the array is. How many videos were there? Well, we have 3 common ways that we embed videos in our material, this being the most common by far, video-player. Audio, same deal. Self-checks. We have tags that do that, things like multiple choice, users putting in place something called self-check. Objectives, coming up with how many learning objectives there are in a course, which we allow people to put in visually as the instructor to communicate to students. Here's what you got to do. Images, how long does it take to read? Number of data tables, and video length is a fun one. So first we tee up this object just doing basic query selector alls against the entire course as HTML. This is going to get heavily cached. So by heavily cached, I mean if these calls were to happen when this goes out into production, it's not recalculating this outside of once a week. If we're doing it for an individual lesson or a page within a larger sequence, it's going to cache it for a day, just because this could get pretty aggressive as far as the amount of HTML that it's requesting, assembling. And I mean, I'm sure that my site can return static HTML via HTTP2 very quickly, but still, just for funsies. So here's the cool one. So query select everything in the course for the video player tag. Now, I could put these in fully. I mean, we're started here. So then, because it's an HTML element effectively, right, I can do get attribute. We'll get attribute as source because I know the API as to how we constructed video player. So whenever someone embeds a video in their online course, if I go here, I'm sure I'll find one somewhere. There we go. Okay. There was one right there. And so if I right click that, we will see that this is a video-player. And so using the HAX content authoring system, this faculty member put in the video player. And on that video player is source, which goes to utu.be. It's a shortened version of YouTube address-wise. And then we interpret that source and you can play the video. Cool. Now, what we do with the fact that we know people are putting videos in that way, we can obtain all of the video sources in the page. Well, I mean, in the course, like all the pages. And then if we do this little d, we can do new URL. We can break that source down into its pieces to make it easier to work with. We can look at the origin and make sure it's not the YouTube no cookie domain or just youtube.com or utu.be, because we have to do a slightly different replacement each way. And from there, we can try to find that pesky V parameter, that $V equals, which is our video ID. So this helps resolve and give us all the video IDs in an array. We also then hit Vimeo, because Vimeo has an open API using oembed.json. And if we find that we have a video embedded from Vimeo, we can get data off of their API on the fly and come up with duration. So what we're doing in this big sequence is assembling all of the videos in the course, querying to obtain the durations, and then getting all the durations added into one giant length to figure out how much video is in this course. I also had mentioned previously that I had some debug console output. That's because I'm still working, trying to come up with, well, what do we do with sources that aren't YouTube or Vimeo? But YouTube and Vimeo are what we primarily use for serving video. It's very rare we serve content via our own proprietary media system. Well, not proprietary, just internal. All right, so imagine at the end of this running, we've got lists of just all of the YouTube, video ID things in a singular array. Then we loop through, and every time we hit 50, we process, because Google's YouTube API, using the V3 API and the content details part, only accepts a max of 50. However, it does accept 50. Why do I know it accepts a max of 50? Well, this course is massive. And I ran into this physical limit. So every 50, it batches up and makes a single request. So then we get the durations from the Google API for YouTube version 3. And this is going to come back with that as a list of items. We then parse through the items and convert the interesting format that they have there that just tells you, hours, minutes, seconds. So we parse through that and generate the total number of seconds off of each video. Then we add that into the total, and then at the end, we return video length. So you'll have all of the videos. And as a result of that value, this table is live updated based on parsing all of what I just said. So in this case, it says smart objectives. That means that it walked through all of the HTML of the entire course, looking for a specific tag that we've made, and then a list item within it. That implies there are 103 list items across an unknown topology of the site. So if we go and add more pages to the site and then come back and reload this, we'll get different values, and we'll analyze that information appropriately. This is to give this type of a looking ahead, as it actually says up there, a capability to our faculty and staff, so that then when they're constructing content, they're just putting this tag down and saying, yeah, I want this to show how many pages there are in the course. You can see here, it's calculated there's approximately 2 hours and 39 minutes of reading. Again, this is for the entire course. That might not make a ton of sense to tell someone up front. Now, we could, if you have the entire course's material here, we could make this thrown on the first page of the course and basically say, hey, here's everything you're going to experience, right? There's 164 pages in this course, 103 learning objectives, 50 images, 21 data tables. There's a lot of data about chemistry, apparently. We have 57 interactive items. These are self-checks, H5P items, things that you can play with and engage with and learn more. There's 129 videos in this course, totaling 13 hours and 27 minutes of video. This is a huge course, but it's an extremely manageable, gorgeous, high-performance, engaging course because it uses HAX. And so you can see we can have these smart blocks that the lesson highlight tag being very much just present the icon and present a heading and a subheading. It gets activated by lesson overview to inject this smart data on demand. So looking at that real quick, we've got lesson highlight, which lesson highlight has smart in it, but it really is kind of a dumb element. It sets title initially when we're loading, so we can see that. But otherwise, there's not much going on in here beyond just visual. So we have the icon, we've got subtitle and title, both as properties and slotted fallback. And then our overview banks on the fact that there is a lesson highlight inside of it. And so the lesson overview has very little styling, just has the slotted material there, only shows itself when it's visible via a mixin. Here we've got the intersection observer mixin, which I've written about previously on dev.2. Then when we're visible, call get smart data. And get smart data analyzes our store manifest if we're in scope of HAXcms running, which is MobX powered, hence the 2JS call. If we're not, which I specifically made for this, I could force feed it an address. And so you'll see here that we have a very basic, hey, whenever you click the button, forcibly call get smart data and pass in whatever that link is to drive it. That's how I'm doing it for this demo. So when it goes and we have that information keyed up, it then tells all the smart blocks they're not hidden, but they are in a loading state. Then, and I say all of them, it's just the ones inside of this tag, right? So that's the this.query selector all. So then we call micro front end registry, and we call our course stats endpoint. And when we're done, and we do async await on this, so whenever this finishes, then we're going to update these smart highlight elements. So it is going to actually go get and assemble all of this data, right? The audio, images, objectives, data tables, pages, etc. But unless the block is actually placed there, right? So if I get rid of, you might notice some of these have duplication. So if I get rid of images, get rid of that, I don't really care about audio files. And data tables by themselves, I don't particularly care about. So now I'll save. All right. And then when we hit this, note we only have those items that are loading in. And if any of those items are null, it's not going to display the information after update. So I'm going to actually get my course space. We'll wait for this to finish just to prove that it updates those values consistently. Do love our little loading icon going on there. All right, and we've got 103 objectives that were analyzed, 164 pages, lots and lots of video, right? 13 hours, 27 minutes. Very nice and concise. Looks professional, like someone manages and updates this, but the computer doesn't. So let's analyze my course, and we'll see there should only be a few values. It'll also come in faster because my little course is tiny. See, so some of those went away because it detected, yeah, you wanted me to show video. There isn't any video in that course. So if there's no video, then it doesn't have any stats to give about it. If I switch to, I believe it's IST 402, I believe has some video. Not sure if it has self-checks. Let's see how many pages we have in there. I don't have learning objectives marked yet in mine. That's a newer concept. 6 videos. There's 1 hour and 11 minutes of video in IST 402 embedded content. Now, this isn't going to get you things that you might be a link, and it might say, click here to watch the video. That's 4 hours. And it's obviously not picking that up. It's just hitting tags semantically, stitching it together. But you can get a pretty cool overview. Even we're talking about making a button when we go to edit content that just has like, give me insights. And so it's for the content author. Because I could see that you potentially would want to just use the tag more like this on the right here, where you're kind of just writing, hey, there's approximately 3 hours of reading, right? Because you ran this script on your own, clicked the button and went, oh, we've got about 3 hours of stuff. Because you would hit a point where the course is stable, that this information isn't going to update too frequently. Now, generally that happens after like 1, 2, 3 years. Like there's a lot of management and massaging of that material over time and improvement. But things like this would currently get lost, right? So I don't have a discussions tag yet. And so because I don't have a discussions tag to have an engaging conversation with your peers right there in the page, which definitely isn't being worked on by someone right now. But when that shows up, then we could detect how many discussions there are in a course, and that shows up. It's possible, people do this, I hear, that they put their conversations and discussions in dumpster fire tool sets like Canvas or Board Black. And so, or I think it's called Lacking Drive to Learn. I forget what they all are called. But let's say you used a good LMS like Sakai. You potentially don't have any way of getting that data via API because I didn't account for it here. You're just going to go and manually enter what the thing is. So at least it can help resolve the difference between that, which you can see here with the uses HAX, right? Because if I go and paste this in, that is just hard coded there, right? So you could have some hard coded things mixed in with this data being generated in real time. So if you're interested in what we're doing, make sure to hit me up on the Twitter webs at BTO Pro. I'm going to be posting a lot more about these types of approaches. We're hoping to roll this out for our next release by the end of the month, mostly because this development process with vercel and microservices makes this excessively low risk. So catch you on hackstheweb.org or anywhere else.